I haven't seen my next guest in quite a while. He's one of the funniest guys in the business, and he's been a comedian for over 3 decades, and certainly one of the most successful. He's one of those people whose career doesn't seem to slump, as it can do in comedy. He's a great success in Las Vegas. He kills audiences there. He's made movies in which he's very effective on the screen. Mad, Mad World, The Love Bug. I can't remember the others. There's even one I think he hopes I won't mention, but I may bring it up when he gets out here so he can defend himself. He's done shows on Broadway. He's considered quite a good actor, and done Lunatics and Lovers, I Had a Ball. I think Viva Madison Avenue was one of them. He's a Brooklyn boy. That used to be essential to comedy. Worked in the Catskill circuit. He once worked inside a weight guessing machine, whatever that means. Maybe he'll tell us. And he's written a couple of books, one of them, perhaps surprisingly, a book of poetry. So, will you welcome a Renaissance man, Buddy Hackett. There now.
So you're wearing a lavalier?
That microphone?
Yeah, and I'm working the boom.
That's right.
Okay, I just want to know. I didn't know if I had to come over and talk into your tie.
You know, somebody did that once. Someone not in the business, and they kept leaning over every time they spoke to me.
Talk in your tie.
And I realized they thought we'd forgotten their microphone.
You went home after you had a little spit on your tie.
Yeah, it was.
It was awful.
They shrunk it to a bow tie before the show was over. How are you?
Well, I'm always the same, you know. I'm always, no matter how fat I am, I'm fatter than I want to be, and how thin I am, I'm not thin as I want to be. That's always my big hang-up.
So it never changes?
No, I'm always upset. Tell you what, I get up in the morning, and I look in the mirror, I say, oh, it's you again. Oh. And it bugs me.
But wouldn't you be startled if it were somebody else all of a sudden?
Once I got to 158 pounds, and there's a lot of different things, like, you don't hit the wall in a shower. That's one of the biggest things.
You never had to have them rock a bathtub to get you out of it or any of that?
No, I didn't have that, no. No, the highest I ever was 253 or something like that.
Yeah. It's funny, when you say 150, whatever it was, for me that's up, not
no, 158 is a lot for you, right?
Yeah.
You'd go for middleweight champ if you were 158.
Remember our old friend Jackie Leonard used to say, I lost more than you are. And I guess he did.
He once said to an audience in Boston, that upset him, he said, Paul Revere never should have warned you.
Did you ever see him topped? I did one time.
No, I didn't. What was the time? I'll tell you one that I did with him, but...
Well, this was on the old Parr show, and Jack had been going and going, Jack Leonard had been just going at that tremendous speed. And he finally just sort of ran out of breath and said, for no reason, I'm sure he didn't know, you know, my wife's an acrobat. And Jack said she'd have to be. Parr. He was so stopped by this that the only time in my life I've seen his jaw drop. What was your...
Well, years ago, I was single, very young, and I got booked in the Catskills because I had a car. Main reason because I had a car. So I got booked for a few shows, $45 a show, and Jack was a big star up there, and part of my job was to take him to his job and to take him to breakfast and show for him during the day. So I met some lady I knew, and she spent the night with me. And in the morning, there's a knock on the door. We had these cabins where this guy kept us. And open the door, fat boy, fat boy, fat boy. Open the door, fat boy, fat boy. Open the door, open the door. So I said, just a minute. And I get out of bed, and I open the door. I get back in bed, and I tell the girl who was naked to just put the covers down here and sit up in the bed. I said, come in. He walked in. He said, what the? Take me. Whoa, wow,
A transcript of that wouldn't mean much, would
No. He got topped by tuppers.
Did you ever want anything else as a career, Buddy, or life other than performing? You seem to be a born performer.
Yeah, I like what I do.
Yeah.
I really like. But in the business, I'd like to do other things.
Yeah.
I think Edwin was, is it in a picture? I forget if it was Requiem for Heavyweight or if it was The Great Man. And he did a 7-minute...
Face in the crowd.
We did one 7-minute scene. And he got...
The Great Man.
Okay, and he got an award for it.
That's right.
And I'd like a chance, you know, to have for me and all the other comedians. I'd like to get a chance.
Why are people always surprised when a comedian can be moving or you know, can act? It's as if comedy were easy and acting were hard.
We get a lot less laughs than we get laughs, so we're used to the dramatic.
You know, I don't know if you heard this, but someone told me who was old enough to remember George Bernard Shaw, that he came to a rehearsal once of a great actor who was doing his first comedy. Felt he was sort of slumming by doing a comedy. And it was a Shaw comedy, and Shaw got impatient with the guy and said, tragedy is all very well, but comedy is serious business. It's rather nice, isn't it?
Yeah, well, when somebody said that just... Oh, Edmund Gwenn.
Yeah, good actor.
Just as he was dying in the hospital, someone said to him, "Is it tough, Ed?" And he said, "Not as tough as doing comedy."
Yeah, oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned in the introduction that yours seems to be a career without slumps.
Well, I didn't shoot any dice. You know, I took what I know I can do and did it. Yeah. And I didn't shoot any crap, you know. I know there were guys making a big living in nightclubs, and one guy said, "I'm never going to work there again. I'm going to be features. I'm just going to be in features." And I don't know what he's doing now, somewhere with brooms or something. But I know I would work good in a nightclub, and I stayed there. And I made all my commitments in the nightclub. No 30-day clause. You have to leave me out if I have to do a film. Or something. They'll sign that all the time. No one ever goes out to do a film. Yeah. And I just stayed 21 years at one hotel in Las Vegas. I was 7 years in Las Vegas before I signed that deal, and 21 years at the Sahara. And now I just signed for 3 more years over at the Riviera, non-exclusive, so I'm working both hotels.
Well, how does that work? You mean when you're in town you do both?
No, you do one sometime, and sometimes you do the other.
One another, yeah.
And if you got work, you're in the business. If you haven't got work, you're not in the business. When I did that show, Stanley, I was on Broadway, and Garson Kanin offered me a wonderful play called Jaime and the Voices, and it was so good I could taste it. I said, yes, by all means, yes. Meanwhile, Danny and Doc Simon came to see me. Doc Simon was not the Doc Simon of today.
Neil Simon.
Yes. Yeah. And Max Liebman wants to know how you feel about television. I said, I painted my screen black. So they went to the Morris office, and Mr. Les Vogel at the Morris office told me, look, you can't do Garson Kanin's play because he has to rewrite the third act. And the show you're in is closing. That was Lunatics and Lovers. It's too late to book you in any clubs, so you got to take Max Liebman's offer and do the television. Which the William Morris had 10% of the package, you see. Yeah. So I did the television. I did the show Stanley, which was a big hit for Carol Burnett and Ephraim Zimbalist. Dick Gautier just got started on that show. Dick's a producer now and director and actor and comic and everything. And so I did that show, and it was on one season and went down the tube. And years later, I was still in love with Jaime and the Voices. It had never been done. And I called Garson Kanin, and I said, I'd like to buy it to make a movie out of it. He said, of course. I'd like to read it again. He gave me a copy. I read it again. I said, you never rewrote the third act. He said, what's wrong with the third act? I said, nothing, but Mr. Lasvogel told me that you want to rewrite the third act. He said, Mr. Lasvogel told me you wanted to do television.
Oh. I wonder how many stories like that there are.
Well, I was angry when I first heard it.
Yeah.
But since I figured out that Mr. Lasvogel, in his wisdom and star maker that he was, really believed that the TV was the better move for me.
So you
I don't think that.
This now.
Yes, now I think of it. Oh, I was angry for a long time. But now I think, no, he knew he was doing what was the best thing. And maybe he did do the best thing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, it certainly turned out well for you.
It turned out well, so I can't complain.
You said something interesting about, something I'd never thought of before, about comics who work as you do in some way. Well, it's just Rickles, as a friend, Jonathan Winters. By that I mean
Shecky Green.
Yeah, the ones who don't go out and do an act that's could be written down on paper and used night after night, or it isn't memorized, and yet, and they get to a kind of height with that, a kind of plateau, and then there's a sort of critical time in their career at that point, whether they.
You are right.
What is that all about?
I had that in 1954.
Yeah.
1954. Well, it was even before that. December 51, I went to work in Billy Gray's bandbox in Hollywood. And I stayed there 7 weeks, got a movie contract with Universal. Then I was working other clubs, then I went back to the bandbox. First of all, now I had a movie contract, but I hadn't made any films, but I told Mr. Bob Goldstein, who was the head of talent at Universal, I said, Sammy Lewis expects me to come back in the bandbox. He said, what's wrong with that? I said, well, I'm with the pictures now. He said, how many have you made? I said, none. He said, where did I find you? I said, in the bandbox. He said, well, go back there, and I can send some of our producers to watch you, and perhaps they'll put you in one of our pictures. See, getting a contract is easy. Getting into picture was tough. So I went back, and Sammy Lewis told me, look, pick out the good things, put them all together. Have 40 minutes of good stuff, and do that every night. A club owner is entitled to know what he's buying. Mm-hmm. So that was now 52 or late 53, and then I made a picture, and I went to work in Las Vegas, and I started doing those 42 minutes, except in Las Vegas, I was the supporting act at first, so I could only do 15 minutes. Or 12 or something with Nat King Cole and Gordon McRae and people like that. But then I got into doing 40 minutes where I was headlining back in Ben Maxick's Town and Country and places like that. And every night, the same lines at the same time, funny reaction from the audience. But it was driving me nuts. It was a hard job.
It wasn't the thrill of going out, and taking a chance.
That's right.
Living
You're just going out there and saying whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. Except, of course, in those days, I did what they call a very clean act.
Yeah.
Not even hell or damn or anything. Yeah. Then later on, I start getting as free as I want to be. Uh-huh. I'll tell you the first joke I told. I told it to a club owner, and he said, tell it on stage, and here's the joke.
Wonder if they'll hear this at home.
Well, they probably will. I said, I was in the Army, I had a colonel named Fat Ass Johnson. But no one called him that. Nobody would take a chance, but I once called him it by accident. I was working in the motor pool. That's where they keep trucks and jeeps, and the phone rang. And I was just a recruit. I'm not supposed to touch the phone, but I picked up, hello? And the voice said, soldier, what vehicles have you got available? I said, 6 trucks, 7 jeeps, an M8 armored car and a half-track, and Fat Ass Johnson's command car. And the voice said, soldier, have you any idea who you're talking to? I said, no, sir. He said, this is Colonel Johnson. I said, Colonel, have you any idea who you're talking to? He said, no. I said, bye-bye, fat ass. And that's the way we won the war. Well, that was the first time.
I hope you were promoted for that.
Well, that was the first time I was the first story I told off color on the stage. And, you know, the boss said, that's terrific. Buzzy Rifkin, the Tradewinds Club in Chicago in 1960. Mm-hmm. So after that, I got some terrible reviews about how dare he use that language. What language? Then I start explaining the word ass on stage. See, that became, I said, it comes from anterior superior spine. A period, S period, S period. I said, sure. I said, that's a medical abbreviation. If you go to a doctor and he tells you have contusions and lacerations of the anterior superior spine, you're frightened to death. But if he says, look, Harry, you got a little piece of glass in your ass, that's why you're ripping your shorts, then you don't feel bad about it. See? So then, now the critics really ripped me for how dare he dwell on it. Yeah. So then, I would open the show and say, good evening, the critics have taste in their ass. That's how I would open it.
What were you doing inside a weight machine?
Well, I was only 10 or 12 or 13 years old, and there was Uncle Abe on a boardwalk. Guess your weight. He said, guess your weight. And you'd get up on this big scale and had a big fat back about that deep. Yeah. And you're in the back. And the guy, he said, you weigh about 140 pounds. And I'd move the thing to about 142. You had to guess within 3 pounds.
Yeah, so you get
and
either
I'd
way.
move it over there. The guy says, yeah, I must have lost 9 pounds. But you weighed what is said on the thing, and this way.
I wonder who invented the joke about someone being so large that when they got on a scale, a card came out saying, please, one at a time.
One at a time.
That's been around for years and years and years. And it's
we might as well give it to Goodman Ace. He wrote a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
And I think I heard it on Fred Allen years ago.
It's good. It's bright enough to be Ace or Allen or those guys.
I invented a lot of jokes in my life, but only one I could think of at the moment was, and I was working on Billy Gray's bandbox, and I had gotten booked in Las Vegas, and I was back in Billy Gray's. And I said, there's only one way to go to Las Vegas. And of course, this was before there were jet airplanes. As soon as you land, go out to the front of the plane, walk into the propeller.
That's right.
It's the only way to keep from losing money. This way, get an even split.
I bet 30 comics stole that joke because it was, I used to hear it everywhere.
Well, I used to do a whole routine about taking out garbage.
Yeah.
And it was a very clean routine, very acceptable routine. But a lot of guys did it.
Yeah.
But then as I start changing into using any kind of language, nobody could take anymore. Yeah. And it's a kind of a protective coloration there. Yeah. Blue.
Blue color. I guess next to Gone with the Wind, Millie Goes to Budapest must be one of the best movies ever made.
What a picture.
I
I
can't admit I saw it. I know there's a title of a movie called Millie Goes to
No,
Budapest.
that's not the title.
Oh, wasn't it?
That was the title all the way until the end. They changed it to The Golden Head.
Oh, much better.
Yes. And the story was about two crooks that go to the cathedral in a place called Győr, G-Y-O-R, Győr, to steal the head of St. Laszlo, the patron saint of Hungary.
It's a comedy?
Supposedly. And George Sanders and I were the crooks. And the little girl, Millie, and her family, they left England in a little boat called the White Rabbit and came up the Danube on a holiday. And she foiled our attempt at stealing the Golden Head. Now, the picture never came out. It played one night in England. And the people were praying for the war to come back. So, I don't know whatever.
Bad, eh?
Well, wait a minute. I made another picture recently that's going to be almost the same. And it's also with me and a little girl. And this picture's called Babe. And the guy's going to see this because it's not out yet. But the guy's going to see this. I made it up in Canada. It had such a nice script. And I really wanted to do it. It was very unusual about this old vaud... Well, maybe it'll be good. I don't know. But this old vaudevillian living in a theater and a little girl who runs away from an orphanage. And they become friends. But he talks to her like she's another guy. Mm-hmm. And he talks, calls her all dirty names, and she answers him worse than he is. Awful. But it's very real, you know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, never heard of a movie quite like that.
No, they ain't never going to be no more like that either. They stamped it. No more.
The man just fainted somewhere now.
Yeah, well, if he sees this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy.
When you do You Bet Your Life, that's a syndicated thing.
Yes.
Do you do that numbing thing where you tape 5 or 6 in a row?
I do 5 in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's not that hard.
It's an ad-lib show with some...
Well, it is for me. The contestants have been rehearsed as to where to stand and all that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But no one could tell them what I'm going to say.
When Groucho did the show with the same title, he ad-libbed some and used some writing help.
Well, they had writers.
Yeah.
And they did one show for 3 hours and edited down to 26 minutes. Did you know that?
Yes, I know there was a lot of editing on it.
Yeah, but in mine, there's no editing. I come out right... Don't ever throw coins at me! The photographer dropped his lens. People may want to know what happened. You probably didn't hear the noise, but it was like a clunk, clunk, and there's a young photographer out there, and he's got a lens like this now.
Do you, have you ever known any comics who successfully retired from the business?
What do you mean by successful?
Well, I mean where they weren't so sad afterwards and they hung around the other comics and so on. It seems like something.
Well, let's see. I think I remember one that became an agent. Mm-hmm. Whitey Martin. Well, no, I don't think he made it.
But can you imagine the impulse or whatever to entertain ever leaving you completely and just thinking...
Me?
Yeah.
It just stopped it?
Yeah.
If we didn't have the inflation, I would have stopped. I had enough saved to continue living the way I'm living the rest of my life if the inflation didn't come along.
Yeah.
Now I can go till Thursday.
Careful.
Yeah, without eating double portions and...
If you don't buy a tie.
But you know, I really get into... I bought a diesel car. Mm-hmm. You know, a Peugeot diesel car.
Yeah.
So that I wouldn't spend a lot of money on gasoline, and also you get a lot of mileage with it. Mm-hmm. I did that. And I turn off the lights in the house all the time, which is kind of damaging because people are eating. And I don't guess you don't need this light no more. You can feel where your mouth is.
That's true.
Yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left. Your son is going into the business.
Yeah, he wants to be a comedian.
Did you ever tell him, look, only 1 in 1,000 makes it, and so?
I told him everything. I try to discourage him. He has such an opportunity in Las Vegas. He's so well liked. He went to hotel school there. He now teaches at the school, occasionally lectures at the school. He grew up at the Sahara Hotel. They were actually grooming him to one day be general manager at the hotel, I believe. I think so. Or other hotels in town. And kids he went to school with are assistant to the president down at Atlantic City. A kid named David Landau was the kid that went to work there, and I was same age as my boy. But my son got the bug. He wants to be a comedian. Who's going to tell him no? He's a good kid.
Yeah. And there's no way of stopping somebody by telling him what can be rough. What was the poetry book you wrote?
I wrote a book called The Naked Mind of Buddy Hackett, and that's not what I wanted to call it. I wanted to call it I was going along nicely when I came to a fork in my head.
That's a much better title.
But if you want me to do one of the poems, I'll try to remember one.
In 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds? This is for my mother and father's 50th wedding anniversary. 50 years together, the golden numbers shine. The years have passed, life's mellowed to the acme of its time. Love is all around us, and it's been here all the while. Though the battles that we've won and fought can hardly bring a smile. For who knows where love doth end and that plague of boredom starts? Nor can we find it anywhere except deep inside our hearts. Once I took your arm for comfort and the pleasure of your touch. And later on I leaned upon it, a tender loving crutch. Once I smiled and poured wine for you, fuel for passion's fire. Now again a drop or two so you won't notice when I tire. I know your lovely wrinkled face. I know your lovely time-worn face. I know each wrinkle there. I recognize nature's penmanship, how formed for what and where. Yes, the number 50 loometh like a big clock overhead, and I've loved you every moment. God willing, I'll love you when I'm dead. We're human, so we realize all our days are numbered. But we will love and laugh and drink again when the angels write 100. I got a little bubble in there somewhere. One moment. Yeah.
Very nice work. Don't let anybody discourage you from writing more poetry. Buddy, I have to say a very fast good night to you. I don't know how fast to say it.
Okay. Good night.
Thanks for being here, buddy.
Good night.